This sitting is resumed. Honourable St. Michael, West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me start by once again thanking the constituents of St. Michael West Central for reposing their confidence in me and sending me back to this honorable chamber to represent their interests and also to contribute to the development of Barbados as their duly elected representative. Mr. Speaker, the constituents know that I enjoy canvassing and love to do so. And of course, when you serve as a Minister of Tourism and International Transport, oftentimes you find yourself with a very hectic travel schedule, and from time to time you have to improvise. But notwithstanding that, Mr. Speaker, I think that the constituents in their numbers once again decided that I should return to this place and of course serve them, and of course with the Prime Minister appointing me or reappointing me as a Minister of Tourism. But I want to say that to them that I am eternally grateful for their support, and I will continue to ensure that I give of my very best, not only in this chamber, not only as a minister responsible for tourism and international transport, but certainly as their duly elected representative. And that what worked for me in the past, like I said, notwithstanding my very hectic travel schedule, that I will continue to walk and meet with them and talk with them and do what I enjoy doing most, that is my house-to-house visits. So I have, Mr. Speaker, to put that into the record of Parliament, because without the good people of St. Michael West Central, I would not have been afforded the opportunity to be here. But Mr. Speaker, I also want to take this opportunity to commend and certainly congratulate the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, the Minister of Finance, of course, on the high caliber budgetary presentation that he delivered yesterday. Solid at his words, with the enduring progress based on his training as an economist. And one of the reasons why, Mr. Speaker, it's particularly impressive is because he, in his first efforts since becoming the Minister of Finance in his own right, and there's no doubt about it, that he has risen to the high demands and expectations of the office, as you would have seen, and entire Barbados would have seen as he displayed in his presentation. There can be no doubt whatsoever in what I best describe as his maiden political test innings, that is as the Minister of Finance, because we know before that he would have delivered a budget when he was Minister in the ministry. But on this occasion, he delivered what I consider to be an extraordinary performance, and I must tell you that the people of St. Michael West Central, and he knows most of them well, have asked me to convey their congratulations to him for his inspiration, the content of the budget, and certainly for ensuring that he helped to ease the burden. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East Central has certainly deserved his well-earned promotion through the heavy lifting and his years of, almost 6 years actually, in the Ministry of Finance, helping the Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, and certainly the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central. Let me confess that you might add that I have a personal bias because, like him, we grew up and we had childhood days in the Long Yaps Peninsula area. So you can well imagine the fact that when I tell you that the people, particularly of 3rd and 4th Avenues Long Gap, who still remember him to this day, would have commended him for the outstanding job that he did. As a matter of fact, I am so pleased with his presentation, but it's not only me. that earlier today, when I attended the first quarterly meeting of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association membership congratulated the Minister of Finance, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, on his budget leadership. In fact, to quote the BHTA chairman, he said in his remarks that it was a balanced budget, and I agree with him sincerely. And I might also add that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central happened to be in the area, and he made an impromptu appearance at the meeting, and so impressed were the members of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association that they asked him, without even giving him the opportunity to prepare, to say a few words. And of course, Mr. Speaker, you know that he equipped himself very well. So I want to say that, as always, that he's a man of the people, for the people, and a man who continues to display the traits of compassion and the traits that so many of us who come to public life should display. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that there are some people who come to public life, they come to public life to make a difference. And I must tell you that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central continues to make a lasting contribution and an impression. It is therefore not surprising that when the Honourable Member contested the last general election, even though he has a very, very, very busy schedule, that the people of Christchurch East Central return him not only to this Parliament, but return him to this chamber with a rounding and substantially increased majority. And that is the measure of the man. I wish, Mr. Speaker, to say thanks to him again for his consistent willingness to use his skills, to use his training, to further the efforts and the objectives of my ministry. Because make no mistake about it, when you sit down with the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central as the Minister of Finance, he's exacting and he's demanding, but he's also very open to ideas. And one thing I must say about him, he's always very supportive of the process. And the objective clearly within the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport is not only to have benefits trickling down through, but also pouring through to those who can help us to transform tourism in Barbados, and therefore down through to the rest of society. And I have to commend him for that. Mr. Speaker, there's certainly the objective as we continue in the ministry to continue to build out tourism for all in Barbados. Tourism concessions is not only for a handful, not only for big operators, Mr. Speaker, but tourism concessions are for all persons who wish to get involved, don't matter their size. Like I said, whether you're small, whether you're medium size, or whether you're a big operator. And the contents, Mr. Speaker, of the budget relating to tourism and international transport ministry are by no means the product of a knee-jerk reaction to what is happening globally. These matters have been discussed with the Ministry of Finance, but they are really policies that are designed to flow very carefully through the development and the implementation of strategies and tactics that allow us to continue to build out and to grow tourism in this community, but also, Mr. Speaker, to respond effectively to what is happening within the international arena. Mr. Speaker, we would have seen going back all the way through to COVID, that if there's one sector that can respond with alacrity, that is the sector of tourism. Make no mistake about that, Mr. Speaker. No industry or business can truly said to be immune or disconnected from the impact of what is happening globally. But the tourism sector, Mr. Speaker, is one such sector. And I can always tell you that in times of crisis, the tourism sector can rebound. It rebounds confidently and is grown. And as I will demonstrate later in my presentation, that even when we look at the post-pandemic period, you can see a Barbados economy growing from strength to strength, notwithstanding what we were faced with. And like I said, it rebounded faster than any other economic activity in this country. But Mr. Speaker, the Barbados Labour Party administration has consistently lowered taxes in this country for all taxpayers across all tax bands. And why I have to go back to this point, Mr. Speaker, because you will hear from time to time that there are persons who would wish to give the impression that the Barbados Labour Party has not tried its best to insulate and to protect people. But this budget, Mr. Speaker, and consistent budgets from the time we took office in 2018 has demonstrated the Barbados Labour Party's commitment not only to a better life for people, but to ensure that we shield people and we protect Barbadians. And the budget has clearly demonstrated that when you look at the reverse tax credit, Mr. Speaker, the increase from $1,300 to $1,700 for persons earning up to $25,000, that is a government that is caring, but a government that is also compassionate about its responsibility. When you look, Mr. Speaker, at the fact that the reverse tax credit will increase from $25,000 to $35,000, or a credit of $750 for income year 2025, benefiting, Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of Finance indicated, over 17,000 taxpayers. The cost of living credit of $100 per month for persons who don't have any pensions whatsoever must be commended, Mr. Speaker. Can you imagine what it's like that you don't have any income and a government comes to Parliament through a budget presentation and makes the point, notwithstanding your situation, we have a responsibility to ensure we protect you, and therefore you will benefit from the cost of living credit of $100 per month. Mr. Speaker, even the welfare beneficiaries will also get the $100 a month benefit. And I can tell you that there are people in my constituency who have contacted me and have told me that the budget was not only a good budget, but then when they look and see the benefits and what the government is trying to do to shield and to protect Barbadians and protect them, that they feel so happy. That is why I can stand here and tell you that the people of St. Michael West Central sends not only their kind regards to him, but they thank the Honourable Member for Christ Church Central for all that he has done. And Mr. Speaker, the measures are designed, like I said, to insulate, but to help ease the burden. And when you have a government that is so compassionate and so caring, that has so implemented policies to protect the people, its people in a society, it tells you the story about how compassionate the Barbados Labour Party continues to be. But the benefits were not only designed at the level of the individual, Mr. Speaker, because I can go on, and I'm not going to recite it because members have talked about the cap in terms of fuel costs and implications to ease the burden, not only for Barbadians but for businesses. But Mr. Speaker, when you look at the measures announced yesterday, and particularly for the ministry that I have responsibility for, I can tell you that those concessions will go a long way. Let's take a look at them, Mr. Speaker. The automatic 3-year extension for all tourism properties with concessions for under the Tourism Development Act for additional 3 years. Mr. Speaker, those that will expire this year will have now an opportunity to continue with that benefit for 3 years. And that benefit helps to keep not only the product going, but it also helps us to maintain the quality. The rental car companies, I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, as they said, they are very happy because you have a Minister of Finance who came to the chamber yesterday and announced that approved rental car companies will become eligible for duty excise and VAT exemptions on hybrid and electric vehicles and the associated charging infrastructure every 4 years. The rental care companies will also be designated as tourism service providers under the Tourism Levy Act. The reduction in VAT, Mr. Speaker, for car rental companies, removing the VAT from 17.5% to 10%. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the standalone restaurants, you recall that in March of 2025, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central announced the implementation of access to duty-free concessions under the Tourism Development Act for protein and wines, Mr. Speaker. But in this budget, as a continuation of the program, they will now, all those standalone restaurants will now benefit from spirits, duty-free access to spirits under the proposals, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the fact that the Caribbean regional market is growing for tourism, and we have to ensure that we continue to grow that sector. The Minister of Finance has relaxed and reduced, I should say, the regional tax, the taxes imposed for regional travel from US $35 to US $20 from July 1st until June of 2027. But Mr. Speaker, you might ask, why am I reciting these budgetary initiatives? I have, Mr. Speaker, to recite these budgetary initiatives because these initiatives are set out not only to maintain quality in all tourism establishments across Barbados, allow the sector, Mr. Speaker, to remain competitive. And I haven't forgotten, Mr. Speaker, and I know a little bit about it, because oftentimes people see tourism products and believe that they're making a lot of money. But if they were to know otherwise, they'd probably be shocked. Mr. Speaker, is not only to reduce the burden of taxation, but it's also important that we increase visitor spend and that we create more employment opportunities for people, and we, by extension, Mr. Speaker, increase economic activity across Barbados. And Mr. Speaker, even though we're doing all of this, we still have to ensure that we build out the tourism sector. And Mr. Speaker, whether those detractors want to hear or not, it has to be said that Barbados has benefited from robust year-on-year growth, not only in record earnings, Mr. Speaker, and arrivals, but there have also investments coming in Barbados as a result of the records that we are setting in tourism, that investors are investing more than $1 billion in Barbados in tourism products in this sector, Mr. Speaker. There's no denying that. And across Barbados, Mr. Speaker, you can see it. You can see the construction of hotels, the construction of villas, the opening of new restaurants and construction of some. And you can see as you move around Barbados, not only are you seeing the construction activity, Mr. Speaker, but you're also witnessing the opening of new hotels in Barbados. I've said in the Well of Parliament that Indigo has just opened there, Mr. Speaker, and if you go and ask them the occupancy, they will probably tell you the occupancy. And we have very shortly, as I indicated again in the Well, that you will have another 28 all-suite luxury property, Blue Monkey, being opened in Barbados later this year. And if I add Royalton, Venice, and the Royalton property that will be open, I'm told, at least in the summer, it tells you the story. People don't invest money in a country if they don't have confidence, Mr. Speaker. People don't invest money in the country if you don't have airlift. And people certainly don't go and invest money in a country where they do not believe they will get not only return, but their investment will suffice. But will survive. So I tell you, Mr. Speaker, that the growth is not only limited to hotels and restaurants. The individual Barbadians, Mr. Speaker, as I speak to you, who are also expanding and getting into the vacation rental pool. They're also building out accommodation in the vacation rental sector because they too have seen the benefit and they are realizing, Mr. Speaker, the benefit of progressive tourism policies. And Mr. Speaker, it is being felt across Barbados. If you look at tourism in 2025, we've had a 3.3% increase year on year in record arrivals. For the last calendar year 2025, Barbados has had 729,310 long-stay visitors visiting this country, Mr. Speaker, with an increase in the growth of occupancy. And I say to you, Mr. Speaker, people can play a numbers game with arrivals because they used to do that before. But if I tell you that the earnings from this sector have also grown and grown substantially, $1.869 billion in 2022, Mr. Speaker. Full year for me in 2023, $2.3 billion. Mr. Speaker, in 2024, $2.732 billion, Mr. Speaker. You don't have the information for 2025, but I'm sure we will get that information soon. But I do not expect any surprises, Mr. Speaker. So, the increase in earnings, Mr. Speaker, it's good to talk about increase in earnings, but what is being felt across Barbados? You have a situation where we're reducing seasonality. We're not there yet, but we're trying hard to get there. We're creating more opportunities for persons working directly in the health sector, not to be put on short time for a prolonged period, not to be sent home or to be laid off. Persons, when we earn more money, those who benefit from a service charge, Mr. Speaker, will also have the opportunity to earn more service charge. And if you are on the west coast of Barbados, you know what the service charge pay is like, Mr. Speaker. You will be shocked, Mr. Speaker, to know what the service charge pay is like in those establishments. So the success is not about numbers, Mr. Speaker. It is about touching the lives of people. It is about ensuring that we build out this country and that we, as I continuously say, that we continue to build out tourism earnings, and those earnings not trickle down but flow through, Mr. Speaker, all across the society. And that is what I'm about. But Mr. Speaker, airlift has also caused us to go into growth mode, and that is a fact. We continue to be engaged in discussions with our airline partners. Less than a week and a half ago, I had to go to Routes Americas in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And I met, obviously, with the carriers because you have to keep meeting with them. You have to keep ensuring that you are there with them to ensure that you can drive additional benefits. And even though, Mr. Speaker, that we will continue our focus on our core markets like USA, Canada, the UK, and the Caribbean, and of course Latin America, we will continue to increase air seat capacity into Barbados. Mr. Speaker, Fifth Freedom rights were granted to Virgin to fly into St. Vincent and Grenada, and there was some discussion as to whether or not we, because of a third flight, that we will get the benefit. Mr. Speaker, the numbers speak for themselves, first of all. In addition to that, we maintain more than 65% on the one flight that is shared as a tag flight. Mr. Speaker, KLM, as you know, returned to Barbados, driving more airlift from Europe, and we also granted them Fifth Freedom rights. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to announce right here today, because even though I knew it was coming, because I had a little hint when I was in Routes Americas in Brazil. I could not obviously go public with it. But I'm pleased to announce to this chamber that pursuant to our airlift strategy, and as we move into phase 2 of that strategy, that Barbados for the next winter season will benefit from a third daily flight from British Airways into Bridgetown, Barbados. Mr. Speaker, it is history in the making and record breaking again. Because you recall when I came to the office, they only had one daily flight from each of the carriers coming out of the United Kingdom. We, in 2024, sat down, spoke to them, and we got double dailies for the winter from both British Airways and Virgin. Virgin came to us with for freedom rights. We granted them, Mr. Speaker. And I have every doubt that there are people who follow people in the airline business. But I'm telling you, the fact that we have moved now from breaking a record from double dailies across the Atlantic, Mr. Speaker, come this winter season, British Airways will be having a third flight. The third flight will be coming out of Gatwick, and Mr. Speaker, the beauty about it is that it will also be a tag flight. So you have a tag flight connecting to Guyana, you have it connecting to Tobago, Mr. Speaker, and you will also have it going into Grenada. So, Mr. Speaker, the future is bright. And even though we have some challenges, we will work through those challenges. But I say to you that the addition of a third flight out of Gatwick, because remember we have the two flights, in fact, both double dailies currently come through Heathrow. And in terms of, and people who know the airline business will tell you if you're coming through Heathrow, the connection point is always better through Heathrow. But the fact that you have to negotiate slots and so on for gates is also another opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, I hope to be in a position very, very shortly to be able to announce additional routes into Barbados from another jurisdiction. But I will hold on that, Mr. Speaker, because you have to respect the process. But I'm still shopping for more airlift, particularly out of Canada, because we have to ensure we have even more services out of Montreal, Toronto, where the demand has been there, and where Air Canada has put on a bigger aircraft for Barbados during this current winter season. And we are beginning to see the benefits that the Canadian market is getting back there where it ought to be. And Mr. Speaker, we have to work on summer, because I will not get tired of doing this job until I break the back of summer, because we have to reduce seasonality in this country. And to that extent, we are going to be discussing and continue, I should say, discussions with our travel partners. You will hear, for example, that this coming summer, British Airways will put on a larger aircraft. It will come with additional 331 seats between the period of July through to August, which will also deal and address the issues as it relates to demand for the Barbados route. Mr. Speaker, there's sometimes when you want to get out to London from Barbados, and it's so difficult. And of course, the yield management techniques to go in and fit in. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, despite we have the growth in airlift, I must congratulate the ground handling companies in Barbados for responding to the challenges, both Goddard Catering Group and Caribbean Aircraft Handling, by investing in equipment, Mr. Speaker. But we are going to continue to explore even more opportunities for summer travel from the United Kingdom. We got to look at Manchester. We got to look at Greater Europe, Mr. Speaker. We currently have traffic coming out in the winter, but we have to address, and that is where phase 2 of our airlift strategy will have the greatest benefit and impact for Barbados during the summer. Mr. Speaker, very quickly on the matter of cruise. Well, once again, we've set another record. This winter season, Barbados will benefit from over 850,000 cruise passengers, another record, Mr. Speaker, in the history of this country. And I want to say that as we go to meetings, you're getting even more requests from cruise executives who want to have ships come into Barbados. And as a result of that, we're going to have to look to the future and to see how best we can build out expansion at the Bridgetown Port as we continue to cope with the demand and the requests being made of us. Mr. Speaker, we have an ongoing global challenge. But in spite of the ongoing global challenge, you've heard me today make the point that when a British carrier can have the confidence in you to add a third flight into Barbados during next winter season, it tells you, based on all the data, the network planning, all their research, it tells you that there's still demand for Barbados. And we will continue to pursue the strategies that have brought us thus far and the strategies that we have to undertake along with the tactics to take us forward, Mr. Speaker. And I know that we have the global events ahead of us, but at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we have to be responsive and we have to engineer tactics and monitor the situation daily to ensure that we do not fall short of our growth targets, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I can safely say to you and to the public that Barbados' tourism is growing steadily, but there are investment opportunities out there. And I really want to encourage Barbadians to look at the investment opportunities, not only in the accommodation sector, not only hotels, but when you consider vacation rental programs. And the big problem that we have now, Mr. Speaker, all the airlift coming to Barbados, crew accommodation is a major challenge. And that is an opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Attractions as well, food and beverage, Mr. Speaker, transport and other services. So I really want to make an appeal and encourage Barbadians. You've seen where we're going with tourism. You're seeing the benefits of tourism. The concessions are available to everybody, small, medium, and large operators. And I want to say to Barbadians, don't be afraid to invest in the tourism sector. I want you to continue to do so. And those who really want to do so should do so. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank all Barbadians for their contribution to the tourism sector. Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you to the workers within the tourism sector. Without them, Mr. Speaker, working directly and indirectly, we could not have built the brand that we are so proud of in Barbados, and the brand that shall take us forward confidently, Mr. Speaker. We still have a lot of work to do, and I readily accept there's still a lot of work to do. The Minister of Finance spoke about language training, other finer skills that we have to train persons on, and indeed ensuring that we have a plan to ensure we can advance not only investments, but we can advance workers and their participation, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the workers within this sector are not only remunerated, Mr. Speaker, but they can continue to advance and grow within their tourism sector. Mr. Speaker, the vision plan that I have for Barbados will have other strategic outcomes and considerations. And I will, of course, take the appropriate strategic actions along with my team to ensure that we continue with the expansion of source markets, existing source markets. But we have to move full steam ahead. And the other markets that we have to go after. You've heard me make the point that the Asia-Pacific market, which is the largest growing market, if you look at UN tourism reports, Mr. Speaker, and look at the history going back for the last 50 years, you will see that there are Pacific countries that are overtaking what we would consider source markets. So we have to respond to the times, Mr. Speaker. And we also have to proceed full speed ahead as well on the Africa and the Gulf states market. We are currently going to pursue those strategies and to ensure that while we protect our existing markets, we continue to build and build strongly on those other markets. And Mr. Speaker, in closing, back to the budget. Mr. Speaker, it's a budget, in my opinion, that is built on strong economic fundamentals and certainly a measured approach to the ongoing global events. It is a budget, Mr. Speaker, that is designed to ease the burden on taxpayers and other persons and the easing of the cost of living burden on all Barbadians, Mr. Speaker. A government willing to listen to the people, a government that continues to listen to the people, a government that continues to listen to its stakeholders and to respond to them constructively. So, Mr. Speaker, I know that my time is running short. And let me say in closing, that I always say this, Mr. Speaker, that it has been the greatest joy of my life, separate and apart, of course, from having my daughter. But it has been my greatest joy, Mr. Speaker, during my particularly very short tenure, as a Minister of Tourism and International Transport, to have made, along with the team at the ministry, to have made such a profound impact on the tourism sector that raised me up, Mr. Speaker, because everybody knows, Mr. Speaker, that I've worked in the tourism sector for all of my life. And as long as I am or continue to be Minister of Tourism and International Transport, I give the constituents of St. Michael West Central, I give the people of Barbados my commitment that I will continue to give this ministry the very best that I have. And Mr. Speaker, we will continue to go to work every day and work hard, Mr. Speaker, recognizing that tourism contributes significantly, more than 40% to the Barbados economy. It is what we have to do. And I also want to take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to thank all those in the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association and their membership, Mr. Speaker. To thank all those who work directly and indirectly, who have helped me within the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport to bring this sector along, and to have done so confidently and quietly, might I add, Mr. Speaker, that today we are seeing the benefits of growth within the sector. Mr. Speaker, it is my greatest honor to continue to serve, like I said, the people of St. Michael West Central, and I will continue, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that whatever I do will have a long and lasting effect, not only on the constituents, but certainly Barbados. And Mr. Speaker, in closing, let me also say thank you to the Minister of Finance for once again responding to the proposals from within the ministry, to effectively working with us and doing all the heavy lifting that is necessary to advance tourism in Barbados. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I first will express my gratitude to the people of St. Peter for again sending me to this chamber to represent them. I am very grateful. Over 3,100 of them went out to the polls to vote for me, and I have pledged to them to continue my advocacy on their behalf, to continue articulating the issues that confront them and that they need to have addressed. And I say that publicly, even as I say it to them more directly. Now, I also will use this opportunity to commend the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central on a great presentation and great substance in the presentation of the budgetary proposals last evening. I've known of his ability for quite some time. I remember when he headed the Barbados Economic Society at the same time when I headed the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association. We found ourselves responding to a budget presentation. And I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, the budget presentation that we were responding to, I don't want to say chalk and cheese because that would be demeaning one of them or the other. It was like rubbish and cheese or rubbish and chalk. And neither of us was political, so we were very moderate in our comments. But I recognized even then that this was a person who knew, we were saying the country, I don't know what we were saying town, but who knew their onions. You may have some different word in your part of the world, Mr. Speaker. But I
live in the country, Mr. Speaker. I remember I live in the country.
The country of Barbados.
I live in St. Thomas.
Oh, okay. Well, you may know the term then, know your onions.
And I used to live in St. Philip.
Oh, okay.
So I stay in country.
Oh, okay, good. So that, Mr. Speaker, the budgetary presentation that we were privileged to receive yesterday is one that I consider to be a budget for the people and a budget for the times. And I say a budget for the people and a budget for the times to emphasize the link that the Minister of Finance was so expertly able to make, the connection that he was able to make, a connection that drives the development of people, a package of measures that understands that human beings and workers must be at the center of national development. And being able to do that while recognizing the times in which we live. It bears repeating that we live in very strange times. It bears repeating, Mr. Speaker, that we live in very uncertain times. It bears repeating that we live in very unpredictable times. Times have always carried their challenges, but there used to be a certain predictability, a certain logic in how events would unfold. We do not live in a time today, in 2026, in March, where the future is remotely predictable. And being able to recognize that unpredictability and being able to recognize the need to undergird those on whose shoulders this country must rise reflects a certain level of expertise that must be congratulated. Now, the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke to the fact that unemployment in Barbados stands now at a record low, 6.1%. He also spoke to the fact that very soon we will hear the announcement of 19 consecutive quarters of economic growth. Now, Mr. Speaker, these statistics are not mere numbers. Speaking about economic realities are not things that only business people do. Because I will say to you, Mr. Speaker, and I will say to this chamber, and I will say through you to the country, that supporting people, providing a safety net for people, shielding people can only take place if there is a strong enough economic infrastructure. As a matter of fact, socialism and the democratic socialism that this party proudly practices is only successful, and Karl Marx spoke to it, it is only successful if that social and political infrastructure is on a solid economic infrastructure. And so when we speak about growth, whether it is growth in tourism, whether it is growth in agriculture, growth in the construction sector, when we speak about growth, when we speak about reductions in unemployment, we are talking about building an infrastructure that allows us to be able to face the uncertain times that we find ourselves in today. And so the budget and the measures that were announced within the budget are measures that can be announced because of the heavy work, the heavy lifting that has been done and that this government, this Barbados Labour Party government, continues to do. And when we talk about putting people at the center of our development, when we talk about the ability to shield those who need to be shielded, We are talking as a Barbados Labour Party in government about what some people call policy coherence. Policy coherence. Measures that work together to achieve an outcome, so that the measures under the subhead costs of living enunciated by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central yesterday goes alongside what this government has been doing when it established for the first time in our history on the 1st of April 2021 a national minimum wage. That national minimum wage was in recognition of the fact that there needed to be a level below which a person's pay could not go. A person needed to be able to keep body and soul together. A worker needed to be able to support him or herself as well as their dependents. And so we established a national minimum wage. In June last year, we increased that national minimum wage, the rate, and in January of this year, on Erobara Day, we increased the national minimum wage again. And so when we see measures, when we hear measures enunciated that speak about increasing, government paying for or covering the cost of half of any fuel adjustment increase, a fuel adjustment increase that will affect working people in this country. When government announces that it will cover half of any increase, we see that government continues its work with respect to protecting those who are vulnerable in our society. When we hear about a reduction in the excise tax on diesel and gasoline, we recognize a coherence, a relationship. We recognize that there is a common goal, a common agenda that government is working to with respect to all of its policy announcements. When we hear, for example, Mr. Speaker, that on food, on personal care items, and on construction materials, that the duties will be charged not on the price that includes the insurance you had to pay to get them here, either on an aircraft or on a ship, not on the freight charges that you had to pay, but on the original invoice price, because that's what free on board means. Free on board, and I know I'm speaking to a former teacher of business. Most people think of you as an attorney, but I know that you taught business. But free on board means that government has decided that it will not charge duties on a price that includes these other things. Just what you paid, whatever you paid and got it to the port, either in Miami or wherever else you shipped it from, that is the charge. So it is a reduced charge. And government is doing this, again, to protect people, particularly vulnerable people, workers in this country. On this matter, I must be clear to appeal to those who import and sell to the workers of this country to pass on the savings of this measure. One of the reasons, Mr. Speaker, why we disagreed strongly with the misguided approach of the Democratic Labour Party when it spoke to adjustments in VAT is because we are not entirely convinced that these savings will be passed on. We have included this measure because it is part of a suite of measures. And I use the word, I know it's spelled S-U-I-T-E, but the measures are SWEET, S-W-E-T. This is part of a suite of measures so that it does not stand on its own, or as the Honourable Member for Christchurch, for St. James Central would say, it does not stand in splendid isolation. Otherwise, we would not have done it, because we are not entirely convinced that all of the savings are passed through. But I'm appealing today to those who buy and sell to us to make sure to pass on the savings. Now, this policy alignment, where we look at protecting people following what we've done with a national minimum wage, when we hear that the reverse tax credit is being increased from $1,300 to $1,700, that speaks to a government that is interested in protecting the vulnerable. It speaks to a government that is interested in protecting and shielding those who are at the bottom economically. It speaks to a government, unlike the Democratic Labour Party, which didn't increase anything in the face of challenges to people. They're cut from $1,300 to $650. That is how they approach facing strong headwinds. They were facing strong headwinds, we admit, but their approach to facing strong headwinds is to put people at the front. It is akin, Mr. Speaker, to using children to find where landmines are. There are some wicked people who send out children to see where the landmines are. They sacrifice them. The Democratic Labour Party is like that. They sacrifice the vulnerable so that the rest can sail through. This is not the Barbados Labour Party. The Barbados Labour Party protects people, protects workers in this country. And so increasing from $1,300 to $1,700 for persons earning up to $25,000 per year is an act of protection. And that is why we must continue to make sure that we build our economy. Because we can only offer these protections if we have a strong enough economy upon which to give these protections. And that is why my ministry speaks often about protection and production. The two must go together if we are to have a viable country, a viable island state. The Minister of Finance, Mr. Speaker, went even further in the protection of the workers of this country. And we talked about persons earning between $25,000 and $35,000. They are now eligible for reverse tax credit as well, $750. We talk about changes in the compensatory income credit, the extending of that from $35,000 limit up to $50,000. We talked about the income tax rate adjustments. And I want to say here, Mr. Speaker, the rate being changed from 12.5% to 11.5% is not a 1% change. Now, this is not anything necessarily overly technical. It is 1 percentage point. But I want to say that the amount of tax will change by 8%. The reduction in the actual tax will change by 8%. And that is because 1 over 12.5 is 8%. So that the naysayers who will be walking around saying that we changed this thing by 1% to make it look as though it is some little foolish poo-poo thing. Those same people, some of them, who criticized the $300 and lined up, well, I feel it was, I don't think those people probably didn't line up. Silly people didn't want the money. The others, the vast majority of Barbadians, took the funds, quite properly so. But that 1 percentage point change in the income tax rate represents an 8% change in the amount of tax, 8% reduction in the amount of tax for persons earning between $25,000, well, not for persons earning between $25,000 and $75,000, for the income between 25,000 and 75,000, because below that, there is zero tax. And so, Mr. Speaker, I recall and recap these elements of a suite of proposals to show how this Barbados Labour Party in office approaches storms that are on the horizon. We approach them understanding that people must come first, that Barbadians must be able to eat, that Barbadians must be able, after they've worked and earned their income, must be able to support themselves, must be able to support their dependents. That is the kind of Barbados Labour Party administration and proposals that the people of this country voted for just a few weeks ago. That is the party in government that I'm proud to be a part of. That is the party in government that I'm happy to say understands workers, understands their needs, understands that particularly those at the bottom need to be protected, understands that when rain going fall, you need to give people an umbrella or raincoat. We need to protect our people. This budget, Mr. Speaker, is a people-centered budget. It is a budget for the people, and it is a budget for the times. We also, Mr. Speaker, recognize that those who have worked and are now in their retirement years, I don't want to say senior because I realize the reaction from the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. Senior is now becoming a word that is a little bit touchy. So let us speak to those who have reached their retirement years. And yeah, he is happier with that term. But this Barbados Labour Party government and those measures enunciated by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central also brings relief to pensioners in the face of the uncertainty that is before us, in the face of the challenges that we see right ahead of us. Those challenges including, in a major way, the fact that crude oil prices, using Brent crude as the example, but then we know that heavy oil that we use for a lot of our production is going to follow suit. Facing those headwinds mean that those on fixed incomes, those who have spent a lot of their years building our country, building the very economic infrastructure that I referred to earlier, those persons also have to be protected. And so the matter of the cash credit for those whose pensionable income is less than $50,000, that cash credit of $1,200 per year paid via the National Insurance and Social Security Service, that is a measure that recognizes that we needed to have a budget for the people and a budget for the times. Increasing the allowances for pensionable income for those earning between 50,000, well, over 50,000, and raising that limit now to 75,000, also recognizes that people must be shielded. When rain falling, you got to provide the umbrella or the parasol or the raincoat. That is the kind of policy approach that this government uses. That is the kind of policy approach that we see in the budgetary presentation from the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. The budget also included some description of diversification in our country. We've talked about it for quite some time. And the matter of the green industrial zones. And Mr. Speaker, the budget was very clear that the purpose for these green industrial zones is to create a diversified economy but also to bring new jobs into this country. And I want to add, Mr. Speaker, as the minister responsible for labor, that when the Barbados Labour Party in government talks about new jobs, it is talking about new, decent jobs. New, decent jobs. And I know, even though the Honourable Minister of Finance did not mention it, he's a decent man, in spite of the school he went to. He is a decent man, and he meant decent
Honourable,
jobs.
sure you want to use that term, the specific last term?
I just wanted to say that. It doesn't really matter
Honourable, you
which
sure you do
school
not
go
want
to.
to withdraw that phrase?
No, I said
You sure
it.
you do not wish to withdraw that phrase?
No, I just meant, Mr. Speaker, that it doesn't really matter which school you go to.
As the Honourable said, is unparliamentary.
Sorry, he went to a decent school. And so I know that his proposals recognize that the jobs that he is attempting to bring in these green industrial zones are decent jobs. And so, Mr. Speaker, the matter of the skills that will be required in these new areas, and we heard a lot of reference to the IDB study, the dearth to some degree of skills in the area of digital technology and digital ability. This budget and the suite of measures so well articulated speaks to the 100% tax credit for businesses with respect to digitization, with respect to business process re-engineering. 100% tax credit. This, Mr. Speaker, is a proposal that will help businesses, employing organizations, to be able to make the necessary adjustments in their operations to bring new, skilled, decent jobs into this country so that the workers of Barbados are able to be reskilled, upskilled, and able to take advantage of these new jobs in the area of technology. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, in addition to that, and how we see all of these proposals working together, in addition to that, the training fund, managed as it is under my ministry, under the National Insurance and Social Security Service, will be offering to employing organizations 75% of the cost. They're going to bear 25% using our partners in labor. So the Barbados Workers Union Labor College, the Public Workers Academy, as well as government initiatives, the National Transformation Initiative and the Barbados Community College. That is how, Mr. Speaker, we build resilience. We build resilience, and resilience means something. That word used to be poo-pooed in this honorable chamber. The people of Barbados were so upset with that poo-pooing that the poo-pooing man is no longer in this chamber. Because we have to build resilience. Our people must be able to withstand the shocks that are here and that are on the horizon. That is what resilience is. It is not any fancy, foolish word. It means that I can stand up against the strong wind. And that is what these measures aim to do. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of other measures in the budget that I just want to mention very briefly that touch and concern the ministry that I have the honor to lead. The matter of working with faith-based organizations. We heard mention of the $5 million fund. I can say to this honorable chamber through you, Mr. Speaker, that in my ministry, we've already started to craft out a discussion document that we will be discussing with the leaders of faith-based organizations next month in April. We have started to work on just a draft. We will be presenting that draft. The leaders of faith-based organizations will be able to say, we like it, we want it changed, it is foolishness, let us start fresh. It will, whatever we come up with in terms of the governance arrangements for this $5 million fund will be one that has the buy-in of faith-based organizations. And this fund, Mr. Speaker, is intended to make sure that we look after our young people. These are the future, the present and the future of our country. They will become the workers of this country. And I am particularly pleased about this activity, this fund, and all of the activities that will come out of it, because if we do not have young people with their heads on who know where they're going or who know where they want to go, then we're going to have issues in workplaces. And that's why when I talk about coherence in policy, I am part, Mr. Speaker, of a party in government that understands how different policies fit together to work toward national development. I am also happy about the fact that in education, groups, uniform groups, will be part of the core curriculum. And I mentioned this on the faith-based organizations, religious affairs, only because there are some uniform groups that are part of faith-based organizations, and I would know because there are two of them in my denomination, the Pathfinders and the Adventurers clubs. And so including these as part of the core curriculum makes sense because it allows us to ground our young people. There are many others, scouts, cadets, others. These allow us to ground our young people. And faith-based organizations and the leaders of faith-based organizations are happy that this will become part of the core curriculum of our schools. A lot, and I am coming very, very close to the end, I still get goosebumps when I think about what this government has done with respect to people with disabilities. We have done significant work. And the reason why it gives me chills still is because it tells me that this is a government that recognizes people, sees, hears, feels people, that recognizes the humanity of all people, that recognizes the fact that all of us need to be allowed to contribute to the development of our country. It tells me that this is a government that does not just talk about inclusion, but that practices inclusion. Now, from my ministry's perspective, we are interested in allowing and facilitating people with disabilities to get into the job market. People with disabilities want to be a part of the action. They have been kept back for far too long. This government has made significant strides. And so when we hear in the budget about accessible Bridgetown is not just for people with disabilities to be able to move through Bridgetown. It is for people with disabilities to be able to get to work in Bridgetown, to get into buildings in Bridgetown, to work. That is what we are doing. And I'll say to the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central that I recognize that he has started with Bridgetown. I expect that as we build the economy, a couple more quarters of growth, that we will get to Spicetown. He mentioned that Bridgetown will celebrate its 400th anniversary in 2028. I'll just let him know that 8 more quarters of growth will allow us to recognize Spicetown in 2030. And so he has 2 years lead time. Not everybody takes advantage of lead time. We told the employers that January there's going to be an increase. January came, and I saw one of the organizations saying something in the newspaper that I didn't vomit, but it came a little bit close. I'm giving the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central enough lead time. Speightstown celebrates 400 years in 2030. And so if we start on Bridgetown in 2026 to meet 2028, I look forward to the budget presentation of 2028 to meet Speightstown 2030. And as you said, Mr. Speaker, he is a decent man. He went to a decent school. So I know he understands what I'm saying. But I'm also talking, Mr. Speaker, with respect to people with disabilities on the matter of the cash credit, the cost of living cash credit. Again, recognizing that people with disabilities need the assistance just like everybody else. And so all those who are currently receiving special needs grants, and that again, those are paid out through the organization that falls under my ministry, the National Insurance and Social Security Service, for 12 months, $1,200, $100 per month, recognizing that all of we is people. All of us are human beings. And those, as a matter of fact, those with special needs may need special attention. This government understands that. This government is sensitive to that. This government responds to that. We also have the matter of the Special Needs Trust. But I wanted to say, finally, with respect to Social Security, on the matter of policies that work together. I've spoken about the minimum wage and all of the costs of living measures. I've spoken to our work with respect to special needs grants and the cost of living cash credit. I also want to say that another beautiful example of policies that work together to achieve an objective is the policy announced by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central that speaks to a cash credit for mothers with multiple births. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that for the first time in the country's history, when we increased maternity leave some months ago, we spoke for the first time to mothers giving birth to twins, triplets, or more. For the first time, we spoke about multiple births, recognizing again that when a mother is in that situation, there is additional help that is needed, additional time that is needed. And we, even as we established that we would move the maternity leave from 12 weeks to 14 weeks, we established that a mother having had multiple births would get not 14 weeks, but 17 weeks maternity leave. Now, in this budget, the Minister of Finance was able to announce this multiple births cash grant. A recognition, Mr. Speaker, of people, recognizing what people go through. And I just want to say to you and to Barbados through you, that this government is in touch with the people of this country. This government recognizes what the needs are. This government scratches where it itches. This government recognizes that there are people who need to be protected and works to protect those people. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I want to circle back to the matter of minimum wage. And I spoke to something that made me almost throw up. The suggestion that an increase in the national minimum wage could be one of the reasons why businesses close, why people go out of business. Now, what I'm going to say now is not going to come over too nicely. Everything is going to be parliamentary, Mr. Speaker, but it's not going to come over too nicely. And I know that less people will like me than who like me now. I said this before publicly, I'm going to say it again. In 1834, If the idea of paying wages and businesses going out of business because of paying wages was the consideration, Mr. Speaker, you and I would still be enslaved. I'm saying simply, I'm not going to any big fancy analysis. I am saying clearly in this honorable chamber, Mr. Speaker, that a business model that does not allow for a decent wage is not a fit and proper business model. If I cannot, after working for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, if I, after doing that, cannot buy food, pay my light bill, pay my water bill, send school my children, that business ought not to exist. Plain and simple, Mr. Speaker. What I'm saying is that those who manage businesses, sometimes you have to recognize when you've come to the end of the road. Now, I ran a business that I had to close. My sister and I had to close. Our comparative advantages were disappearing. And sometimes you have to make a decision, well, maybe get into something else, not this. The business has to be viable. The Barbados Labour Party in government is not opposed to profits. We believe that businesses must be profitable. They can only employ people if they're profitable. They can only grow if they're profitable. The people who work in those businesses must be able to survive. Must be able to survive. And so my call to employers is not to just focus on this matter of businesses being forced to close because a person gets 21 cents per hour more. My call to businesses and to employers in this country is to so refine your business model as to allow for the provision of decent work. Refine your business model, create business models, and if I were not here, Mr. Speaker, I probably could do some of that work for them. I've done many a business plan in my life, and I've never done a business plan to submit to a bank. But when I do business plans, are generally for banks. I've never done a business plan that assumes that the workers are not able to, as I always say, keep body and soul together. If anybody has that as a business plan, it is unethical, it is immoral. Revise and refine your business plans so that you are able to have a sustainable business, that the business can make profits, that the business can expand, and that those who work for you to build your business are able to eat, to pay their bills, and to support their dependents. That is all this government is asking for. Nothing major, that is all that we ask for. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor and pleasure of supporting these budgetary proposals. Like I said before, for me, the proposals, the suite of proposals, represents a budget for the people and a budget for the times. It represents the building of a resilient society. It represents inclusion of everybody in the society. It represents an understanding that any sustainable development in this country must recognize the humanity of people and the hard labor of those who work. And so, Mr. Speaker, with that, I commend this budget to this chamber. I commend it to the people of Barbados. And I am confident that it will allow us to face the headwinds strong, resilient, and that we will come out even stronger at the end of this. I'm obliged to you.
Honourable St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to begin, if you would permit me, by showering praise on the Honourable Minister of Finance, who I think very ably piloted an excellent set of budgetary measures through the House yesterday evening. And in my judgment, Mr. Speaker, sir, there were measures which constituted much needed targeted support given the nature of the global environment within which Barbados now finds itself, and through which, sir, we have to continue to sensibly and seriously navigate. There were not, by any stretch of the imagination, Mr. Speaker, reckless or indefinite subsidies, but rather, sir, as I said, there were targeted interventions, well-timed and carefully crafted, in my judgment, that allow for us to pause. I believe the language used during the COVID pandemic by the Honourable Prime Minister, sir, was to pause and then accelerate and pause as circumstances require. And that is precisely where we are now. It is the environment within which we have to function. And quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, sir, it also did another very important thing. And that is that even as we put ourselves in a position to protect your constituents and mine, protect our consumers as a country, and therefore our economy and our economic well-being, more importantly, sir, it also did not cause us to lose sight of the growth trajectory of the country. And so we can keep our eye on that very essential ball, which is called the growth of the Barbados economy, even as we implement these measures. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, having said that, I must crave your indulgence to allow me to speak to this House, and through you, Mr. Speaker, sir, speak to this country as a senior minister with responsibility for the country's productive sector must. And there are some things, Mr. Speaker, sir, about which we have to become far more mature, and I think about which we have to become far more serious, and accept that it is not business as usual in Barbados. It cannot be business as usual in Barbados. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, sir, it cannot be business as usual in this region. Now, the truth of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that on Wednesday of last week, which would have been around the 11th of March, we received notice from the Island Sole Utility, the Barbados Light and Power, that they were going to have an increase in the fuel clause adjustment. And that fuel clause adjustment, Mr. Speaker, saw an increase from 29 cents per kilowatt hour to 35 cents per kilowatt hour. And as I understand it, sir, the consequential impact on the average household in Barbados would have been $17 for every household bill on average. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, as has been our custom, the knee-jerk reaction to that was that everybody broke out in hives. And the Light and Power, the utility, becomes the worst people in the world because of the increase. Now, sir, the first thing that we have to understand as a country, and the fuel clause adjustment has been around for a long time, it is not a rate increase. The fuel clause adjustment movement is not a rate increase. The fuel clause adjustment movement reflects the market value of the oil which we have to import in order to generate the electricity that we generate, to run the households, to run the business places across Barbados. Now, sir, I have no brief to bear in this place or at all for the utility. And in fact, from time to time in my past, and this is the second time I have had to pilot this particular sector through a period of global uncertainty and disruption of energy. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I haven't done it before. I believe I must do so successfully again. And I have had in the past, from time to time, to speak truth to the utility. So I am by no stretch of the imagination their greatest friend. And I believe, sir, that in this House I may only be outstripped in my critical comment from time to time by my very able and learned and my able friend from Christchurch West, who has himself had to speak truth to the utility. But Mr. Speaker, sir, we have to be very reasonable people, because the fact of the matter is that we have to begin with a common understanding that as we, the country and the people of Barbados, try to navigate our way through these perilous and uncertain times, and we are facing what may well become uncharted waters because we do not know how long the confrontation with Iran will run. What we do know, Mr. Speaker, is that on all the available evidence, there is no backing down from either side, and I will come to the movement in prices shortly. So therefore, we have to begin with the understanding that it is most unhelpful for us to be in a position as a country where we get caught up at the very outset by casting aspersions and throwing slings and arrows back and forward. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that, and I forgive members of the public who may have understandably been distracted in January and in February because matters of great domestic importance were taking place. But the fact of the matter is, sir, that from the very first day of January, oil prices were around $60 a barrel. By the middle of January, sir, when the first aircraft carrier was dispatched by the United States government to the Persian Gulf, prices in the oil sector globally started to increase. And that upward march of oil prices, sir, continued right through the month of January. Unabated, it went into the month of February. On the 6th day of March, sir, I came into the well of your house together with the entire team from the Ministry of Energy. And I said to the House then, sir, that this was a matter about which we had to take urgent and serious notice, because between the 1st of January and on the 6th day of March, that movement had gone, in terms of oil prices on the international market, from $60 a barrel, sir, to as high as $80 a barrel. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, that is a 33.33% increase. Little could I have known that between Friday the 6th of March and last Friday, which was Friday the 13th of March, sir, there will be another 33.33% increase, and the oil prices would have gone to $106 a barrel, which is the figure quoted by the Minister of Finance when he presented the budget yesterday. And Mr. Speaker, sir, that tells us that we are in a state of affairs where a 66% increase in the energy sector took place and impacted this country. So let us begin by understanding, therefore, that in the context of an island which faced an unexpected, unanticipated, unplanned for 66% price surge in energy costs, petroleum products, sir, that it cannot, by any stretch of the imagination, be reasonable to start by saying that the throughput and the energy, the fuel clause adjustment is in any way unreasonable or irresponsible. Now, Mr. Speaker, having said that, there's a second point, and it is this, that 80%, sir, 80% of the electricity generated in Barbados is generated as a result of the importation of fuel into this country. We are still that dependent. Now, it tells us two things, and the first one is easily understood. We have to get real about the issue of renewables and renewable energy, and that is a matter about which, sir, I give the House the strongest possible assurance. I'm only 1 month into service in this ministry, sir, but it will be the heartbeat of everything that is done in the Ministry of Energy to now drive renewable energy forward and to unlock all the potential that this country has, because we cannot continue to be caught in these peaks and troughs It is impossible to plan an economy, impossible to plan economic activity, Mr. Speaker, sir, if for every couple, quite frankly, every other year, we find ourselves in these types of situations. But the second point, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that there was a need, clearly, for there to be very targeted interventions that identified, first of all, what are the points in the ecosystem called Barbados that will be more sensitive to the surges of prices, more sensitive to inflationary movement, Mr. Speaker. And I think that the Honourable Minister of Finance has adequately done that. He has identified fuel as being one of those inflationary points. He has identified freight, Mr. Speaker, and he has also identified the electricity costs. And I don't think anybody can dispute that those are the things, sir, that touch everybody in every activity. Don't care what it is that you are doing in Barbados, those are the things that will impact you. Everybody, Mr. Speaker, sir, will not be impacted by the rising cost of the law books. Everybody, Mr. Speaker, sir, may not be impacted by the rising cost of dental equipment. Everybody in Barbados, sir, will not be impacted in the same way by many other activities. But these, sir, are cross-cutting issues which hit the pulse point of all that we do, and frankly speaking, sir, can cause a cascading effect right across the economy. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, it was necessary to take protective measures in order to ensure that we shielded our consumers from the full weight of the effects of the circumstances that the country now finds itself in. Now, I want to speak a little bit to some of these measures, because I listened today to the call-in program, and I sense, sir, that there are still some Barbadians who do not fully grasp the circumstances that we confront ourselves with. We, sir, have to recognize that a few things have been done. And the Honourable Minister of Finance would have spoken among the several measures to the question of heavy fuel oil and our activity in what he calls hedging. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, for those who do not know, when the Honourable Finance Minister is speaking of hedging, he is not talking about nice ornamental vegetation. He is speaking, sir, about going into the futures, market. This country speaks a lot from time to time about cost of living, but has not done so in a holistic way and has not done so in a fully serious way. Mr. Speaker, sir, risk management is part of protecting consumers from cost of living issues and cost of living surges. The Minister of Finance spoke to us yesterday and indicated that we have not only had discussions, but frankly speaking, Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Energy Company, during the course of last week, entered into contractual relations of a futuristic nature with the suppliers of heavy fuel oil, which is the oil that we must import into Barbados in order to generate electricity. We have purchased oil, Mr. Speaker, sir, locked in at $92 a barrel, and that will continue for the next 3 months. So that whatever the price may be, this morning at 4 o'clock when I checked, it was $104 a barrel. As you would recognize, Mr. Speaker, sir, I just said that yesterday it was at $106 a barrel. So it ebbs and it flows. But the trajectory has, for the most part, been a march upward. And I do not know what tomorrow will hold. And as the more militaristic activity takes place in the Gulf, the higher the market uncertainty, the greater the market reaction in a negative way, and then the higher the cost of the energy product that we import. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, what we have effectively done, even as I speak to you, is to lock in at $92 a barrel oil that is being sold elsewhere at $104 a barrel. I say even as I speak to you, sir, because right now there is in Barbados a ship that would have journeyed here during the course of last night and early part of today. And Mr. Speaker, sir, that would be offloading the heavy fuel oil that this country needs, but which was purchased at a $92 contract, but which today, Mr. Speaker, sir, is valued at $104. So when the critics of the government ask the question, well, what is the government going to do to protect the consumers? The answer is that the government has, in fact, intervened in the marketplace in a manner that, quite frankly, sir, we have not been doing before. And this is one of the serious things that we have to be real about, because entering a futures market can be risky. Obviously, if the war stopped by some miraculous stroke of fortune and prices went back to normal within the next few days, then, Mr. Speaker, sir, we would be stuck in a certain situation where we're paying for oil at a price higher than what it used to be. But that is not likely. And part of what we have to now do is to manage risk, and manage risk in such a way that you sensibly but cautiously enter the market in order to protect the consumer. So that for those people who on today's program may have asked the question, but why is only 3 months? It is only 3 months because that gives us a reasonable window within which to monitor that which we are doing and to see what is happening out there in the world. And as I said, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the words of the Prime Minister, from time to time you press the brakes, or then you know when you're going to press the gas and go forward. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I go further. Gasoline and diesel. Now, the suppliers to this country of gasoline and diesel, are Pariah from the Gulf of Paria. Is that correct pronunciation? Paria. I don't want to say they are Pariah because that's a different thing. The Gulf of Paria, Trinidad, Tobago. And Mr. Speaker, sir, they do not have, or they've indicated to us that they do not have the appetite for trading on the futures market right now because of the volatility and the uncertainty. And that is reasonable because, quite frankly, at this time, everybody looking to hedge. Everybody would like to get onto the futures market. So, sir, because we cannot do that with gasoline and diesel imported into the country, we must now find domestic, homegrown solutions. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the homegrown solution, ably articulated by the finance minister yesterday, was that we will have, and I have it here, sir, I don't want to misquote him, that we will have gasoline, VAT on gasoline capped, sir, at 47 cents a litre, and diesel 37 cents a litre, and that will be held in place for 1 year. So that in 2027, when we come back to do a budget, Mr. Speaker, sir, that there will now be coming to an end. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't think the country realized, and I frankly, sir, because I had left this ministry and gone to represent Barbados in a different capacity, did not myself realize, even though I spoke every night on an election platform for the government, sir, and campaigned vigorously on cost of living issues, Mr. Speaker, sir, I suspect that I was not alone in Barbados. That the VAT that the Honourable Finance Minister speaks to and says is to be extended, that cap to be extended into next year, sir, was implemented in 2022, but never, ever came off. I was minister when it was implemented, but I didn't follow in it as closely after I left energy. So the fact of the, that's true, but the point is, Mr. Speaker, sir, the fact of the matter is that when this government has been lambasted all around Barbados, what are they doing for consumers? How is it that the cost of this is so, gas is so high and petroleum is so high, etc., sir? Little did people seem to realize that the government, sir, has been continuing to shield consumers in Barbados to the extent of a 53% subsidy, effectively, on gasoline, and 53 cents subsidy on gasoline, and 63 cents on diesel, all through 2022, all through 2023, all through 2024, all through 2025, sir, and into 2026, and we are now extending it into 2027. And Mr. Speaker, sir, that paints a very fulsome picture of that which the Honourable Member for St. Peter just spoke to. And that is, sir, the extent to which this government commits itself to defending ordinary Barbadian people. Now, Mr. Speaker, I go further. The excise, sir, on gasoline has been reduced for a period of 3 months by 10 cents, and that will then move the excise from 99 cents to 89 cents a litre. And similarly with diesel, sir, a reduction of 10 cents for 3 months, moving the excise on diesel from 44 cents to 34 cents a litre. And because in 2022 we had taken the extensive measures that we took coming out of COVID, in that first disruption, Mr. Speaker, sir, then there was a recovery which the National Energy Company had to have, because if we did not implement the recovery at 9 cents a litre, we would end up breaking the energy company financially. And so therefore, the recovery process was to run for a period 2022 to 2026, I believe it was. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, that will now have to go on for another year. And the recovery will drop from 9 cents to 4 cents, so that Barbadians will get 10 cents on the excise, 4 cents on the recovery. The Honourable Minister of Finance spoke to 15 cents. So where does the other cent piece come from? 10% on the VAT, Mr. Speaker, sir, the VAT that should have been collected, but which was waived, sorry, sir, and therefore you would have 17.5% of 10 cents is 1.75 cents. And there's no such thing as a 0.75 of a cent, so you have a 1 cent giving you the 15 cents, Mr. Speaker, and that is how we have come to the point. We have come, every cent counts. Every cent counts. And so therefore, sir, every cent counts, and the Honourable Finance Minister will be the first to So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is that we have taken very detailed measures, but how then does that translate, sir, into what you actually put into your motor car? And I take the time to go through this because the adjustments translate into something real for you as you drive your vehicle. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am advised that there are perhaps, as the average vehicle in Barbados, those vehicles are 1600 cc vehicles. I thought that engine size was a little on the large side, but that's what people tell me. And the average is, if that is the case, it will carry approximately 40 liters to 50 liters of gasoline, depending on the make and the model. Let us assume, just for the sake of this exercise, that it is 40 liters of gasoline. And we assume, Mr. Speaker, sir, that if it is 40 liters to fill up, that we are going to fill it up on today's measures. Now, the import cost today, Mr. Speaker, sir, if we go to the global market, is $104.96. If, Mr. Speaker, sir, there was no change in the excise, if there was no change in the BN-ECL recovery, in other words, if the Minister of Finance did not do the things that he did yesterday, sir, we would be paying at $3.96 a litre. By 40 litres, you would be paying $158.40 to fill up that vehicle. After yesterday's budget, Mr. Speaker, sir, you will pay $152.40, so that you have a $6 difference every time you fill up that vehicle. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, there are those, especially those who congregate in a district of St. Michael called George Street, who will say, well, that's only $6, well, that ain't nothing. And I want to remind them, sir, that, this country, sir, also had a set of circumstances where the VAT was never reinstated. That VAT has now been extended for another year, so that on top of all the VAT that we talk, all the VAT, sir, all the reduction that we talk about, sir, we are talking also about a 53-cent subsidy on gasoline that has been carried to every consumer of gasoline for the last 4 years. And if that is not enough to convince the doubting Thomases amongst us, sir, let us also look to what the global news is telling us today. because the governors across the United States of America, these are the governors of the states, are saying that they have no interest, no appetite in doing what the finance minister did. They're not intervening to adjust taxes and so on petroleum product. That if the president feels that he's going to unleash the strategic reserves, he can do that. But as far as they're concerned, the solution should be conservation. In other words, drive less. And that is America that is producing petroleum product. That is America that has strategic reserves. We have no strategic reserves. We do not produce the petroleum product. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are intervening in a way to shield the ordinary Barbadian in a way that the largest economy on the planet has not done. That's right. There are some countries who are telling people that you have to stay home for 1 day of the week. And shut down universities too. So we are not talking that language, Mr. Speaker, sir, but we are intervening in strategic and sensible ways in order to maintain some sense of balance and anchor of well-being of people in this country. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have to say a word or two about household energy. Household energy, Mr. Speaker, sir, you will recall me saying that I think it is unwise for us to begin this national journey, because that is what we're really on. Whatever happens in Iran, I hope that the takeaway for all of us in Barbados is that we are going to be a lot more alert to the need for us to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels and go to green energy. And secondly, sir, that we become, as a country, become more willing to be conservational in our thinking. How do we conserve energy? And the Ministry of Energy will roll out over the next few weeks a number of ideas on conservation. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, we also have to realize that all of us in this together, all. And, Mr. Speaker, the truth is I spent many hours of the last weekend in discussions with senior executives of the Barbados Light and Power. Why did I do so? I did so, Mr. Speaker, sir, because I wanted to get them on side. I wanted to get them to agree to work with the government on a policy initiative which would see us introducing into widespread usage across Barbados another option for you and for other members in here and for our constituents, all of them across Barbados. An option, sir, for us as the nation's consumers of electricity, which would simply say that if you so desired, you could shift the bulk of that which you do home at you and that burning current. Like if you're washing your clothes, for example, and you don't use an outside line, though I don't know why in sunny Caribbean people don't have an outside line, but some people like to use a dryer. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I see them selling, you got washing machine and dryer unit together. And it may be that there are some bachelors, sir, who don't know how to hang out clothes. I don't know. But the point is, sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, I did not look in the direction of the member for St. Michael's, so I did not. But it is not a matter with which I'm familiar. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the truth of the matter is that during the course of the quiet hours, which we could call in the context of the language of the sector, low peak hours, those hours between 11 p.m. and 7 in the morning, that is where there's the least demand. And the question I ask of the Light and Power, is it not possible for us to encourage people to use that time to do more of the activities that cause the electricity to be utilized? And that if that is done, we incentivize people so that we say to the consumer, if you choose to use those hours, then you get a benefit, which in the language of the sector would be a time of use tariff or an off-peak tariff. That's what they call it. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, it happens in other parts of the world. And the time has come for us in Barbados to be prepared to open our minds to the whole realm of possibilities that we can institute in order to offer the greatest gift that we can offer to our consumers. And that, sir, is the gift of choice. It is choice and choice alone that empowers a consumer. If it is that you have the choice to do what suits you, sir, it might not suit me, but it suits you and you do it and it works for you, then you are empowered. And I, sir, choose what works for me. But if we deny our consumers that menu of options, that range of choices, then, sir, we are not going to be able to have that empowering impulse in the Barbados economy. And so, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am pleased to be able to say that at the highest level of the utilities executives here, I have been given the assurance that they are willing to work with the government, that they recognize the benefit of this idea. Frankly, it probably will work in the interest of the utility as well. And, Mr. Speaker, to be fair to them, they're going to need some time to institute this, because they have over 100,000 meters across this island. And obviously, they must now have time to reprogram those meters so that they will be compatible with the times at which various consumers seek to use the electricity and bill accordingly. So if it is that there are some people who do the bulk of their thing in the wee hours of the morning, they benefit from the tariff, and that tariff then has to be reflected in the billing cycle for those people. There are other people, sir, who may choose the wee hours of the morning to do intensely pleasurable things, and therefore they will not want any light at all for the most part, and so that is another matter. And yes, I have some experience in those things. No, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want also to say a word or two on the question of freight, because that is another one of those touch points of potential inflationary spiral in the country. I could add very little to that which was ably said a few minutes ago by the Honourable Member for St. Peter. This country is facing, or is in the danger of continuing to face, unduly high shipping costs. And the unduly high shipping costs, sir, redound in an unfair manner to the average consumer, which is your constituent, sir, and mine. Because of the fact, sir, that an approach is taken where taxes are paid, and the taxes are paid CIF, which really includes your freight, it includes your insurance, and the insurance and freight can be bundled together, and so sometimes are not fully transparent, then, Mr. Speaker, sir, you have consumers who are carrying an unfair burden, because those costs are passed on ultimately to the consumer. The Honourable Finance Minister has committed that from the 1st of April to the 31st of March, Customs will use free on board approaches to calculate customs duty and VAT on 3 essential areas, sir: food, personal care items, and of course, construction material. Now, Mr. Speaker, it is within the living memory of all of us in this country who are over the age of 5 years that after COVID, sir, after COVID, I don't want to say 1 year because it actually went on for a period of time across years. The Honourable Prime Minister and myself worked very closely together. We brought people up to Ilaro Court who were from the retail sector in Barbados, and we sat with them and asked them to work with the government and indeed to work with the labour movement in order to ensure that there was a compact on prices, sir, where we agreed as a country to hold the markups down on some of the same issues that the Honourable Minister of Finance is speaking to: food, in that case, food and personal care items. And Mr. Speaker, sir, some aspects of that compact, as the Honourable Finance Minister referred to yesterday, are still in existence today. And what I am hoping that we can continue to achieve, sir, is that similar level of national commitment. Now, I'm happy to say, sir, that I've spoken with Mr. Paul Innes, who is in charge of the chamber now. He was traveling this afternoon. He arrived in Barbados tonight, and I spoke to him tonight. And Mr. Speaker, sir, he understands the importance of the point I'm about to make. It is critical that if this effort to change the traditional approach of calculating customs duties and taxes on cost, insurance, and freight, sir, if it is to work, then the benefits, as the member for St. Peter says, must pass on to the consumer. They must pass on. At the level of the Chamber of Commerce, I have secured that agreement, and we will have some discussions beginning as soon as possible tomorrow with a view to advancing a strategy which can see, once again, government working with the private sector. And I have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the Labour movement will be happy to participate once again in us trying to find another homegrown strategy which will enable us to ensure that the Minister of Finance didn't just come here and give away money to importers, but rather that what has happened is a measure that works to the best interest and redounds to the benefit of all consumers in Barbados. Let me say now, take off the hat of Minister of Energy and the hat of Minister of Business and don the hat of the Minister responsible for Consumer Affairs and Protection. That the Department of Consumer Affairs must now step up to the plate, sir. And the Department of Consumer Affairs will have to increase its ability to monitor. And not only monitor, but we have to find a way, sir, to enforce these types of initiatives so that people do not treat the goodwill of the finance minister as a subterranean path towards their private and personal bank account. It is not intended to enrich anybody. It is intended, sir, to shield consumers. And so therefore, the Department of Commerce in Barbados, let me serve notice now, has to be as potent a tool of national well-being and intervention to secure and promote national well-being as is the Department of Commerce in a place like the United States of America. Yeah? And those are some of the things, sir, that in the short to medium term, we are going to have more discussions on. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, while we do that, the consumer is already empowered, so I want to remind the consumer that there is now an app created by the same Department of Commerce called Ask Delia. And if you go on Ask Delia, it empowers you to identify where the prices are low, and you can therefore be in a position to see where not only where you go and shop, but also to share the information with others so they too know where to go and shop, but more importantly, to feed back to the ministry so that we know where it is that there are some things that should really be sold, let us say, at $4 a pound, but all of a sudden, that one place is selling them at $10 a pound. That ain't making a sense because every other store that is being monitored is around $4.50, $4.30. The prices vary. We can accept that. But when you see it outlandishly high, then we have to have a conversation of a different type. And Mr. Speaker, so these are the things that we have to do in order to make sure that there's a continuity of fairness in this economy. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to speak now a little bit about the business sector, in particular the small business sector. If I have any time that will allow me to do so.
I didn't hear what he says. If you have any time.
If I have time, sir, I am guided by you. But in the hope that I have a little time, sir, I want to mention a thing called factoring. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is an issue that I know you know, and I know you've had to represent people, as I have had to represent people who are small contractors in Barbados. And I give an example. You know, there are hotels building all around this country, thanks to the excellent work of the Minister of Tourism. And Mr. Speaker, sir, you may tell a small contractor, come and tile this floor, the ground floor of my hotel. And another fellow come and do the second floor, sharing out the work. But if I come and tile the ground floor, Mr. Speaker, sir, and 3 months later I ain't see a cent, I am no better off. And 6 months later, I ain't see a cent. I struggling. I am now trying to keep my people employed by going into the overdraft facility of my business. And the overdraft facilities in Barbados, sir, are running at 10% and 12% a month. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, that is an unconscionable impose. I know wherever I speak because I've had to take companies to court, not one, not two. I've done it on more than one occasion, more than two occasions, taking people to court in order to ensure that the small contractor get paid. And Mr. Speaker, sir, that burns me. I dislike it intensely. There was a fella in the party that didn't get in, that lost the seat that had it here, that did not obviously understand the issue. And I leave it there. And I hope that the financial literacy program of the government, sir, should assist him. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is that what we are proposing with factoring, sir, is to allow businesses to sell their accounts receivable, and those are the unpaid invoices, they call that the accounts receivable, and you sell them, Mr. Speaker, sir, to a third party. And that third party is what you call the factor. And invariably, Mr. Speaker, sir, let us assume that and this is an economy now that can do many things that we didn't do before. Let us assume, for argument's sake, that that third party may well be one of the finance houses like Fortress or one of them. I don't know. But if it is, then, sir, you can almost do your business today and choose. If you choose, and again, I go back to the power of choice. If you are a businessman who is saying, look, I'd rather not wait. I'd rather not wait a month. I'd rather not wait 2 months. I want to get some money in my hand immediately. As opposed to running an overdraft facility for 3 months at 10% a month or 12% a month, I can almost immediately part company with that invoice, get the money that is due to me, and yes, I may have to pay for that service and it costs me 2%. But Mr. Speaker, so you could do the arithmetic. 10% every month for 6 months, as opposed to 2% off the top, sir. And that is the lived reality of the business community, small business community in Barbados. I am not encouraging anybody that they have to do it. It may not work for everybody, but I know that there are many small businesses in Barbados that have suffered as a result of the inability to get the money for which they have worked quickly. And let me say, sir, I am also aware that that doesn't only happen with small businesses that are subcontracting to large companies. It happens when you work with government as well. And it is something that we have to find ways to fix. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I am eternally grateful to you for giving me the few extra minutes to be able to say that, because it is an intervention, sir, that I am satisfied has long been necessary in Barbados. I am heartened by the suggestion coming from the finance minister that we can locate this for the purposes of prudent management within the Central Bank of Barbados, where I believe the competence lies, and have, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Small Business Association work in an intimate way, because frankly, sir, the idea is one that is closely embraced by the Small Business Association, and that allows for this country now to open up another set of opportunities to ensure that we empower the small business people and shield them too from some of the ravages and unfair practices that take place out there. Because in the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, sir, I haven't been in a court now since Lord knows how long we've been in government, 7 years, I think. But Mr. Speaker, sir, it's the lawyers who's making money in them circumstances, you know. And that's the unfair thing. It is really the lawyers who make the money off of it. And so therefore we have to find a way, again, of ensuring, sir, that the work done by the small business people in Barbados, the small contractors in particular, are able to they can be rewarded properly for the labor that they have done. And Mr. Speaker, sir, as I said, I am very grateful to you for that extra minute or two. I am humbled.
But you talking. You're watching, even though you know I'm asked, but you're watching and working.
I'm humbled by the privilege, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm obliged to you. Thank you.
Honourable Member St. Thomas. That's great.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate in the debate in the budget in this House. I would recall many years of running home from school to watch the great titans of the day participate in the debate. I know the hour is late, but the good people of St. Thomas have sent me here, entrusted me with the responsibility to be their representative, after sending my predecessor here on 6 successive occasions. I am therefore honored by that privilege and privileged by the honor that a son of the soil can speak on behalf of the people of a community that has nurtured him. At the risk, sir, of being accused of engaging in a surfeit, I want to extend the commendation to the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central for acquitting himself in a masterful way in which he has done in this budget. His style was confident, as well as it was his tone. But what stood out to me, Mr. Speaker, was the substance, the context, and the content of his presentation of the budget. By every metric, Mr. Speaker, that you can measure the economy of Barbados, we are on the right path. What should be up, Mr. Speaker, is up, and what should be down is down. Economic growth is up. Job creation, up. Foreign reserves, up. The reverse tax credit that the people from St. Thomas will get who are working in this country has gone up. The pension support for the old people in Allenview and Alpha and Erie Court, Mr. Speaker, that has gone up. The credit ratings continues to rise, and one of the good things I like about this budget is that the government has doubled the amount of capital expenditure, a signal of confidence in your own economy. Because you know, Mr. Speaker, that the Democratic Labour Party, when they were in government, were spending less money on capital expenditure than what the Tom Adams administration was spending in the 1970s and the early 1980s. Income tax, down. Land tax, down. Corporation tax, down. Unemployment, down. And the debt to GDP ratio, down. That is the performance of this government. What should be up is up, and what is down is down. We look at the budget, Mr. Speaker, and we see 21 measures introduced by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central to shield Barbadians from the rising cost of living. The people of Barbados, and more particularly the people of St. Thomas, expect a government to lead and to drive economic growth. We've had 19 quarters of economic growth under the leadership of this Barbados Labour Party administration. In a previous decade where there were 10 years of no growth. The people of St. Thomas expect a government to lead to build capacity. We see a robust expansion of expenditure on capital works, $540 million expected in the financial year to come, up from the $200 million in 2018. The people of St. Thomas, Mr. Speaker, expect a government to lead and drive economic development. That is the improvement of the material welfare of people over a substantially long period of time. These initiatives in this budget, Mr. Speaker, will lead to the economic development of this country in an unprecedented way. They are measures that drive the reindustrialization of the Barbadian economy. And you know, Mr. Speaker, that too many of our factories that have led the economic growth of the manufacturing sector in the 1980s and 70s are now housing offices and retail outlets. That cannot continue. And the measures in this budget, Mr. Speaker, allow for that. The technological leapfrogging that you see by the Green Industrial Gateway Advantage is an important milestone for the Barbados economy. It is new to a lot of people, Mr. Speaker, but it is a game changer. We see more investment in infrastructure, and we see more investment in new industry and in new business, the film industry and all the other industries that would benefit. I'm enthused, Mr. Speaker, to see that growing and harvesting honey is something that has been incentivized by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. In my constituency, there are a number of gullies, a large network of gullies. And I have spoken on the platform about building out the gullies as a place for economic activity. Not only, Mr. Speaker, in terms of creating bike paths and hiking paths to create a more ecological tourism product within the community, but we can now have agriculture, horticulture, and growing of the indigenous Barbadian plants and foliage, and increase the opportunity for young people in Bridgefield, in Prout, in Pori Spring, and wherever there are gullies, to go in there and to build out the honey industry. These are things that touch and concern people, and I am proud about that. Mr. Speaker, the Economic Diversification Fund was touched on by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. We got a lot of criticism for that in the last administration, in the second term of the Barbados Labour Party. But what he's explained is that every year we lose about, currently, $850 million in concessions that we give out to build out the Barbadian economy. The $75 million a year is about less than 10% of what we lose in the concessions or revenue from concessions that we give. We cannot continue, Mr. Speaker, to allow for the detractors of the government's program to get in our heads. We hear about diversifying the economy all the time. Everybody says, man, you have to move away from tourism. And when the government has taken the decisive step to put the measures in place to build out new capacity, new industry, you're also hearing the criticisms. But I say to the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central and my colleagues in government, walk among the raindrops. Chart your course. The people of this country have confidence in the way in which this economy is being managed. The people of this country have confidence in the way in which we are charting a course for the future of the young people of this country. Let us continue to do right by the people of this country and ignore the doubters. Invest Barbados and Export Barbados are being repositioned to lead in the build-out of a new Barbadian economy, Mr. Speaker. And all the measures set out in the budget should be commended. Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Thomas expect a government to lead in building and fostering a good society. What is the good society? A good society is marked by a number of pillars. Family is important. Education is important. The economy is important. Government is important. Governance, good governance. Provision of health care is important. The culture and securing the cultural legacy of your society is important. And most importantly, your environment. All of these are things, if you had to mark the presentation of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, Mr. Speaker, you will see that this budget is holistic and deals with securing all of these planks of the Barbadian society today. Mr. Speaker, the good people of St. Thomas expect the government also to lead in navigating through turbulent times. We live in a difficult world. But this budget is characterized by resilience, building out social cohesion, and a reduction in inequality. All of the measures. Resilience is important. We have to adapt in the difficult times. The measures to shield and to future-proof the economy and the society from the shocks created by a war that we did not start, that is impacting on the rise of cost of living, is an example of that. Building resilience and capacity. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke, Mr. Speaker, about a number of debt to energy swaps, debt for nature swaps. More debt for nature swaps than we had before to give the government the fiscal space to do the things to protect the society, to give the honourable member for the city and his ministry the things to do to protect the citizenry of this country in the Ministry of Legal Affairs and Criminal Justice. In order to do the things to build the new gun courts, to hire the prosecutors, the judges, to put the technologies in the courts, all of our courts, to allow them to move, to give the police the resources, to give the probation department in my ministry and the correctional officers in my ministry the opportunity to work with some of those young people who are creating havoc in this country and to turn around the tide where 14 and 15-year-olds are going to crime. You're going to need resources to do that. And that is why we have to work with the honourable member for Christchurch East Central, who's creating a fiscal space to allow us to have the resources to do the things that are important. The people of St. Thomas understand that we live in turbulent times. Wars, economic realignment, the collapse of the Bretton Woods system, the institutions that led after World War II, the United Nations under stress, and all of the financial ordering through the IMF and the World Bank, Mr. Speaker. The rule of international law under stress in this world. And we have to confront those problems, because if we don't confront those problems, even as a small country like Barbados, we will get squeezed. And we get criticized sometimes for our foreign policy posture as a government. We hear that the government ministers flying around too much, attending too many conferences. But Barbadians turn on the televisions, they go on their tablets, they go on their phones, and they see the changes going on in the world, the convulsions going on in the world. We must confront that reality and avoid doing things like over-rationalizing the past, over-dramatizing the present, and underestimating the future. I say that, Mr. Speaker, because sometimes when we over-rationalize the past, we tend to think that the world was set always in a particular way, in a certain way, and we juxtapose examples on what was the reality of the past. And in the present, sometimes we feel that today's challenges are insurmountable. And then we underestimate what the future holds. But the future in real terms, Mr. Speaker, is in our hands. And I believe that the government is right, and you will see in this budget and in the estimates that have been passed with the appropriation bill earlier this week. Adequate provision has been made for Barbados to pursue a foreign policy that allows us to take advantage of what is going on out there in the world in terms of realignment. The international order can either pivot towards global institutions, norms and values, or we can deal with hegemonic bullies who deal with deals on a one-off basis. And the power vacuum that is being created in this multipolar world is important for us to observe, even as a small country, Mr. Speaker. Conflictual multipolarity, deals and transactions, or do we seek to help build out the new institutions of the new modern world? The reason why it's important for Barbados to engage in these things because more countries in the world have agency than when these institutions were first created in a post-war world after World War II. And there are more players in the world. The countries of the global south and the countries who consider themselves to be middle powers are now like the swing states in the international relations. Our government, led by our Prime Minister, understands these realities. That is why things like the Bridgetown Initiative and the push for international climate justice and the way in which international finance and how small states can get concessional finance and have to play by the rules of the WTO, and all these rules have to be renegotiated and re-engaged because we have a space in the world too. As I said, more countries have agency and there are more players at the table than before. One of the hallmarks of the budget presentation, therefore, for me, Mr. Speaker, is how the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central has redefined the concept of sovereignty. He's redefined it as resilience. He's redefined it as, in a way that it is not only sovereignty in isolation. Build the domestic and economic resilience against the external shocks and allow the country's economic and social development to proceed even in the face of some of these things that we can't control. I saw, Mr. Speaker, members of the Democratic Labour Party criticizing the government for not having a longer structured, sustainable plan to shield Barbados for energy crisis. Today, and it seems that, and I keep saying that every time the media jut a mic in front of their mouth, they have to come up with these big words, and everybody saying how impressive he sounds. Now, how can the government do more than what the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central said in the presentation yesterday? For 3 months, we lock in the price of oil at $92 a barrel. For the next 3 months, we will maintain the caps on energy prices, cap on VAT on diesel, and then reduce the excise tax for the next 3 months. But we are being criticized for not having a long-term structured plan, as if we can control the variables. Again, I say, if the temptation, my friends and my colleagues on both sides of this house, listen to the criticism, but treat that nonsense with contempt. Continue on your path, Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. I'm very proud of that man. Very proud that he can stand here, a product of his own working class community, standing in this parliament in this day to deliver and equip himself in the way that he has done. I can only hope, Mr. Speaker, that I can emulate my schoolmate and my colleague in the assignment given to me under my ministerial portfolio. In the days and weeks to come, I can promise you that in addition to my responsibilities as the parliamentary representative for St. Thomas, I will continue to build out the programs to develop these communities, to make wholesome communities, build up the sporting infrastructure. Indeed, we are starting plans to put cricket and football teams at 2 different parts of the constituency, because we know, and I've been discussing it with the Honourable Member for the City and the Honourable Member for St. John. We know that sports in rural communities bring and build cohesiveness in the communities that allows the elders to mingle and to relate to the young people and to teach them and to create opportunities where the bad and negative forces do not penetrate into the rural communities in the same way as other places. I plan to work hard, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we can do something to tackle how we treat the juveniles in our criminal justice system, to reverse engineer their susceptibility to crime. The 14 and 15-year-olds that we are seeing coming into the system and the 16-year-olds, we can identify the schools that they predominantly come from and the communities that they predominantly come from. And we will have to be able to intervene at the earlier periods where they are giving trouble at school, that the information can be logged. And we can intervene at an earlier stage to see whether this child has learning or medical or other disabilities or what's not, or deficiencies. I know of an instance, Mr. Speaker, of a young man playing cricket in our system, and when we checked, he lived in a community where he had no mother or father. Very talented young man. There's a shooting out by him almost every night, but made it because we targeted an intervention to ensure at the level of the Barbados Cricket Association that he was steered away from a path that most of the young men in this community were afflicted by. We can't save all, but the time has come for us to target our intervention for the at-risk youth in our community. Work with the sporting organizations. I had that conversation with the Honourable Member for St. John and the Honourable Member for St. James North and the Honourable Member for the city. Targeting interventions to ensure that the at-risk youth in this country, identified by the social workers and the schools, do not just be left to wallow and to follow the bad paths, but to use sports, to use culture, get them into programs designed specifically for those who are at risk. We can reverse engineer this trend of crime. We will not be able to stop all crime, but allowing our youngsters to be susceptible to the ravages of crime and then just trying to build more jails and build more courtrooms to deal with the problem is not building out the good society that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central and the government led by the Prime Minister, Honourable Member for St. Michael North East wants for this country. We have to put all our hands on that. I too will play my part. Thank you for obliging me, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I therefore beg to move the suspension of the House until tomorrow, the 18th of March at 9:30 a.m.
The question is that this Honourable Chairman be suspended until tomorrow, Wednesday, the 18th day of March, 2026 at 9:30 a.m. 9:30 a.m. I say no more. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chairman stands suspended until Wednesday, the 18th day of March, 2026 at 9:30 a.m.